The springtime beauty of Washington, D.C. belies bitter battles not yet made public.
All of these cabinet secretaries, they're having to fight a lot of internal battles.
And you know this because you've talked with them.
This week, House Oversight boss James Comer talks about deep state attempts by insiders to derail Trump's cabinet members and fights within the Republican Party itself.
Is there pushback behind closed doors from other Republicans who don't want to do some of this?
The bird flu outbreak in the U.S. has led to the destruction of millions of chickens and pushed up the prices of eggs. Now, some are looking for a new but quite possibly effective approach to the poultry pandemic. We visit one farm where a controversial approach is being put into practice.
If you're old, healthy, and productive, we want you. We call this survivor genetics.
And a look at concerns about cancer and COVID vaccines. We talk with a lead researcher about a potential DNA effect.
So we have a person who had 4 Pfizer vaccines, and then a year after that came down with a colon cancer.
Does it imply that it caused the cancer, or just the fact that it was present in the cancer is concerning? Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. We're just days away from the end of President Trump's first 100 days of his already tumultuous second term. Today we have some fascinating insight into a federal government adjusting to and largely doing combat with the Trump agenda. Republican Congressman James Comer heads up the powerful House Oversight Committee. He talks about his fight to unearth who's blocked release of formerly secret documents and how what he calls the deep state is actively fighting those trying to dismantle it. It's not a popular thing when you have to go out and raise money as a member of Congress to be reelected every couple of years to make cuts. So is there pushback behind closed doors from other Republicans who don't want to do some of this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got some guys that'll never be in a book called Profiles of Courage, if you know what I mean. I mean, you've got members of Congress that their number one priority, in my opinion, is self-preservation.
The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform will come to order.
Republican James Comer of Kentucky heads up the House Oversight Committee, the investigative powerhouse of Congress. It famously exposed the IRS targeting of conservative groups, which sparked national outrage.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Lois Lerner, and I'm the Director of Exempt Organizations at the Internal Revenue Service.
The committee also uncovered billions in misspent taxpayer funds for COVID relief.
Thank you all for being here.
Comer makes it clear that top Trump officials are locked in fierce, epic battles against what they call the Washington, D.C. swamp.
All of these cabinet secretaries, whether it's Brooke Rollins at Ag or Pam Bondi at Department of Justice, they're having to fight a lot of internal battles that really haven't made it into the mainstream media yet.
And you know this because you've talked with them. They're already facing that.
I've talked to some of the cabinet secretaries.
The task force on declassification of federal secrets will come to order.
A freshly launched Oversight Committee task force, led by Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, is assigned to unmasking holdouts who defied Trump's first-term directives and blocked release of thousands of JFK documents.
So our task force is, trying to reach out and question the bureaucrats, figure out which bureaucrat didn't comply with the orders. Same thing happened with the Epstein files when Pam Bondi thought she was releasing the Epstein files. It really wasn't the Epstein files, obviously.
You're looking at these documents going, these aren't all the Epstein files. You know, there were flight logs, there were names and victims' names, and we're going, where's the rest of the stuff?
So that task force is kind of working on very hard behind the scenes to identify which bureaucracies and which bureaucrats are not complying with the president's orders. I heard that 10,000 times over the past 2 years. Well, we can't turn that over. There's an ongoing investigation. We're hearing that with the Epstein files now in this administration. So
who's telling you that?
Well, that's what that's when we request information, If they don't provide it, that's what they say, there's an ongoing investigation.
Some liaison to Congress tells you that?
Well, whoever replies to our letter or subpoena, that's what they say. There's an ongoing investigation.
So even now they're citing that for Epstein?
We've been real careful to try to let some of these cabinet officials get established and things like that. The task force has asked for, the Epstein list and things like that, and that's been the reply thus far. But they still say we're going to release it. We're in the process of releasing it. We've just got to make sure nothing is released that compromises the ongoing investigation.
Do you think we now have all the JFK files, or they're in the process of being posted and so on?
Well, I would say that we've probably gotten pretty much what we're going to get. The question I have is, were there documents that have disappeared over the last 4 decades, and that's probably a possibility. I find it hard to believe that if the government was involved in some type of role in the Kennedy assassination, that they would say, okay, let's keep this file in this safe here. And, I would think that file would disappear very quickly.
Well, I've said much the same about the Epstein files. Certainly, if there are bad actors, they weren't holding the documents under a glass dome waiting for Trump to be reelected so that they could be released.
The thing that worries me about the Epstein files, and I've read a lot about it, like most Americans have, is was our government involved in this? Were they potentially blackmailing some of the most influential people in the United States or in the world? If you go into, Britain and other countries where we know there were very high profile people that were going to the Epstein Island or whatever you want to call it. And if that was the case, I find it hard to believe that any type of evidence of that would still be in existence.
Including videos.
Including videos.
We know there were videos.
And, I think at the very least, there are 2 questions that most Americans have. Who was on the list, and did our government, play any role in evaluating that or spying on that, or were they involved in any type of, blackmail attempts or anything to get information? Enough time has passed, but we're still battling that battle.
Beyond just prying open classified files, Comer has the sprawling deep state in his sights, accusing it of casting a shadow over government operations and throwing up roadblocks.
We have a deep state list that we believe these employees need to be deposed at the very least, to see, to answer basic questions. Why did you cover this up? Why did you provide this statement? Why did you sign the letter saying that the laptop was Russian disinformation when you knew darn well it was not Russian disinformation? We'll have public hearings. We'll do whatever, but we need to work with the Department of Justice.
Are you waiting for the green light from them, or are you working to schedule hearings on these types of things?
We're waiting for the green light.
And why haven't you gotten it yet?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot to do, and Pam Bondi is walking into an agency that's hostile towards her. There's no question about it. So she's having to battle within, and hopefully she'll win that battle and we can see some accountability.
Comer applauded recent promotions of 2 IRS whistleblowers interviewed here on Full Measure almost a year ago. Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler had been retaliated against after they publicly testified the IRS and Justice Department under President Biden largely derailed investigations into the Bidens. President Trump promoted Shapley again, temporarily making him acting IRS commissioner while his nominee awaits confirmation. But within days, Shapley was removed from that spot. News reports said it was a power tug-of-war involving the Treasury Secretary, who oversees the IRS and wanted to install his own acting commissioner. Ahead on Full Measure, slaughter or survival with natural immunity. Since the current bird flu outbreak was first detected in the U.S. more than 3 years ago, officials say it's posed almost no risk to humans. But worries that the virus could evolve and become harmful to people has prompted the government to pursue a costly strategy. Entire chicken flocks are wiped out at the first sign of infection. But what if there's a more effective and less costly solution? Lisa Fletcher reports.
On this 500-acre property in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, Joel Salatin and his family have been farming for more than 60 years. While bird flu hasn't hit here so far, the issue is always on his mind.
How would you describe the response to avian influenza in the U.S. right now?
Insane.
Why?
Any farmer knows that if you have a sickness go through your herd or flock or whatever it is, the last thing you do is kill survivors. You don't kill the survivors. But that's our U.S. policy. We find one sick bird in 100,000, we kill 99,999. It's not science, it's not reasonable.
But Joel, it's what the experts say, it's what the USDA mandates.
Right. The experts told us to use hydrogenated vegetable oil. They told us to use DDT. They told us to use genetically modified organisms. We have expert philia in our country, unfortunately. And a lot of times they're wrong. We got feed in here, we've got nest boxes in here. They're laying eggs.
Salatin may be in the minority when it comes to how to deal with bird flu, but he's not the only one questioning the science and common sense of the current policy to kill the entire flock of birds if even only one of them has bird flu. When it comes to commercial poultry farming, the numbers are incredible. 9 billion broiler chickens bred for their meat, and 390 million hens producing 109 billion eggs in the U.S. each year. Around 2 million jobs are linked to the industry. But the current outbreak of bird flu has hit hard. More than 166 million chickens have been killed in the last 3 years due to the bird flu, costing taxpayers more than $1.4 billion to compensate farmers, while consumers are spending more and more as egg prices keep rising. Which is why some are increasingly asking if authorities have been taking the wrong approach. The head of the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., recently suggested an alternative to identify poultry with natural immunity.
They should isolate them. You should let the disease go through them and identify the birds that survive, which are the birds that probably have a genetic inclination for immunity, and those should be the birds that we breed like the wild population.
He got panned in the mainstream press for it, but Salatin says Kennedy is onto something.
And in fact, there is not a flock on the globe yet that has registered, even in the worst outbreak, more than a 90% infection rate, which means 10% were survivors. Well, wouldn't you want to keep the egg and the sperm from those 10% survivors and breed them?
This administration moves at light speed.
In March, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, led by newly appointed Secretary Brooke Rollins, joined the Trump officials looking for a new approach. She launched a new 5-point plan to deal with bird flu. It includes more money for biosecurity on farms to help stop the virus getting into flocks in the first place, and says the government will explore ways to reduce depopulation, meaning trying to get away from the mass slaughter of flocks. There's also a plan to invest $100 million to research vaccines, both for birds and humans, who can also get sick from the virus.
I want to talk about vaccinating birds a little bit because obviously it's a very divided community on whether or not that works. There are some countries, France, Mexico, who've had some success with it. What do you think about vaccinating birds for bird flu?
I don't believe in any vaccinations, period. Because if you give everything a crutch, you don't know which beings actually have immunity or not.
Do you feel there are any parallels here to COVID? Because listening to you right now, I'm thinking, well, when COVID first happened, we were being told a lot of things as fact that we later found out and are still finding out were false.
The parallels are unbelievable. In the last 24 months, the U.S. has killed 166 million chickens, most of them layers. What people don't realize is probably no more than 1 million of those were even sick. Most of them were not sick.
Since the beginning of the outbreak, that's been the policy. If even one chicken is infected, the whole flock is isolated, culled, and the farm is disinfected. No new chickens can be brought in to restart egg production for weeks. Salatin believes his flock is healthier than most, in part because of the way he raises and selectively breeds his chickens. The goose, by the way, is to scare off the hawks and keep these laying hens in line.
All we ask is, are you old? Are you healthy? Are you productive? If you're old, healthy, and productive, we want you. We call this survivor genetics. If you do that over and over and over again, you're going to get extremely robust birds.
Bird flu is one of the first challenges for a new administration, promising new approaches to pandemics. For Full Measure, I'm Lisa Fletcher in Virginia.
Coming up on Full Measure, a rash of dangerous swatting attacks. And now a news story that hits close to home. A disturbing surge of swatting attacks in recent months has struck media personalities, conservative influencers, liberal judges, and now Me Too.
As we've reported here on Full Measure, swatting is the crime of reporting fake emergencies, often a shooting or hostage situation, at a target's address. Innocent people have been injured and even killed in swatting incidents. The attacks on me and my family started April 15th. In an email, the sender claimed to live at my address and wrote, "I was arguing with my girlfriend and I accidentally stabbed her to death. Just send an ambulance, no cops." Like other swatting attacks, the criminals also launched a flurry of other harassment tactics and online threats. In February, pardoned January 6th defendant and InfoWars host Owen Schroyer was swatted at his Austin, Texas home. Keep walking. He was forced to lie on the ground and crawl backward before convincing officers it was a hoax.
At night, the
Talk show host Joe Pagliarulo described a rude awakening at 2:35 in the morning.
I can't tell if it's a police officer or not. I don't know who it is, but he looks a little bit nervous. But believe me, I've got a video of this guy with a rifle at my front door, like holding it, ready to use it.
InfoWars host Chase Geiser was swatted twice within 24 hours. In the second attack, someone had called police pretending to be Geiser, threatening to kill his own family.
County Sheriff's Office, step out of your house now with your hands up. Come out of the house with your hands up.
Officers ordered Geiser out of his home where he was handcuffed at gunpoint.
There are at least a dozen known attacks in the most recent wave. FBI Director Kash Patel addressed what he called the alarming rise in swatting incidents targeting media figures. He says, quote, "The FBI is aware of this dangerous trend, and my team and I are already taking action to investigate and hold those responsible accountable." Ahead on Full Measure, an expert connects COVID vaccines and cancer. Mainstream scientists say it's not true, but a small and growing body of studies points to a potential COVID vaccine link to cancer. One of the lead researchers on the topic is Kevin McKernan, known for his work on the Human Genome Project. He says the problem may arise from unexpected genetic material, DNA, discovered in COVID vaccines and in patients' bodies long after the shots. So DNA is an information storage system.
Yes.
And it also is an application that can tell things to happen in your body?
Yes, so it can instruct your cells to make certain proteins. It can instruct your cells to grow uncontrollably. Oftentimes cancers are a genetic aberration that occurs, a mutation of some sort. So you don't want to be bombarding your genome with random mutations. And that's our fear of what could be going on with these vaccines, that the moment you start including DNA in these vaccines, particularly DNA that has sequences that instruct it to go to the nucleus and make a change, you're running the risk of the vaccines causing cancer.
The RNA vaccines, the RNA part of it was supposed to give a temporary instruction to your body?
Yes.
And it's not doing that?
And they told you to last, what, 48 hours, right? And now the papers that have come out are showing detection out to 60 days. From the Roltgen paper, we have the Krausen paper showing it out in 30 days in the heart tissue. People are finding it in placentas. People are finding it in breast milk. People are finding it in plasma 28 days later. So there's this persistence problem that no one seems to understand or predict.
So something is staying in your body that is continuing, presumably, to give instructions far beyond what we thought.
Yes.
Make spike protein.
Right.
So what should people be concerned about with what you found? If someone's had COVID vaccines, what would be their concern?
I would keep an eye on if any of your family members come down with an unexplained cancer, get a pathologist involved to get a slide or a sample so that the people who are studying this can begin to look for whether there's vaccine sequence in there. So we have a person who had 4 Pfizer vaccines, and then a year after that came down with a colon cancer, and there were 3 biopsies taken, 2 before death and 1 after. The person died of this diagnosis within 30 days. Those samples were then, we used a tool called PCR to look for the Pfizer's vaccine sequence, and then resorted to a process known as voluminous sequencing to sequence the tissue to see if there's any Pfizer sequence in there, and there is. And shockingly, there's a lot of it, and that was not expected. And the only way that happens is if it got into the cells and amplified and started replicating.
Does it imply that it caused the cancer, or just the fact that it was present in the cancer is concerning because it's in the body?
Yes, it's a good question. We can't nail causality from the data we have, but it is certainly a concern when you see a sequence like that. So there are mechanisms where this could be playing a role in cancer. So the reason we'd like to get this message out is that I think too many of these tumor biopsies are getting thrown away and the evidence is disappearing. And it's important for folks going through that process to try to retain the biopsies if they can so that we can go back and see if this is in fact the case.
And what are you all cumulatively learning or expect to learn in the coming year or two about all of this?
Well, we want to understand how long does this stuff last in patients, because this DNA was not consented to, we didn't expect it, so now there's a new question of how long does it last. We've already seen papers come out showing that they can detect nucleic acid in placentas, and there was vaccine nucleic acid in those. These mothers, unfortunately, I believe, were forced vaccinated for the birthing center. So we don't really know how long it lasts in placenta, and if it's in placenta, it's probably getting into the newborn. So there's an ongoing question in the whole field of where is this vaccine going, how long is it lasting, and what is its contribution to disease? And we have to track the molecules of DNA and RNA to sort that out.
Are you surprised if the government isn't doing this kind of tracking? Because it would seem a natural thing that they'd want to have to answer.
Well, that would be a normal consideration. But in the peak of the pandemic, there was an enormous amount of revenue coming in to our government agencies, which leads me to believe they were not motivated to look for hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin or alternative tools that might treat coronavirus. They wanted the vaccine to be the only solution because that's what lined their pockets.
Many establishment scientific authorities acknowledge the DNA discovered in COVID vaccines, but they say the amounts are too low to pose a risk. Coming up next week on Full Measure, we head to yet another state where legalized pot promised a green rush, but is leaving businesses in the weeds. Is the high life a bust? We'll report from one of the first states to legalize pot on the next Full Measure. Until next time, we'll be searching for more stories that hold powers accountable. Thanks for watching.